You're listening to Up1Notch, a podcast where I explore the tech business world. My name is Mohammad Aoun, and I'm a growth accelerator for tech companies looking to scale their businesses. I'm sitting down with software industry leaders, startup founders, and tech experts. Tune in to hear about the latest and greatest from the tech world. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in into another episode of Up1Notch podcast, where we talk about technology in general and interview people from the software development and IT industry. Today, my guest is Irene Bratsis. Hi, Irene. How are you doing today?
Hi, Mohammed. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. So, why don't you go ahead and a couple of lines about your introduction? It's a long introduction. You worked on the product development side. You worked in AI machine learning. You worked with real estate data analytics companies, cybersecurity. So it would be great if you can kind of sum that up for us just to understand and set the conversation's flow.
Thank you. So I've been in tech for 12 years. Maybe this is the 13th year. And, I was always very interested in tech. I knew that this was going to be a big tide for the general professional landscape. And I was always interested in what tech can offer, us as individuals and also professionally. For a while, I worked in the translation industry, so translation tech, for a number of years, and then I worked at Tesla. I worked, in different capacities, mostly on the client-facing side until I left Tesla. And at that point, I had spent a few years at Experian Data Quality, so I was already hearing about data, and I was already hearing about, big data was the big line at the time. And I was very attracted to it because, it became very clear to me that, most tech products are data products. You're leveraging data in a certain way and sharing certain insights. I mean, that's the whole point of what makes a product valuable. So I was always interested in the less glamorous side of it. And, especially now in machine learning, you hear about, the quality of data and how that impacts products. But anyway, I took this interest and really jumped into upskilling for my own, for myself, just to understand these emerging technologies better. I never had real aspirations of being like an engineer, or I worked briefly as a data scientist, but really liked this ability to take concepts of what is valuable in the market and work very closely with engineering to build that. So product became a very natural home for me. I've been a product manager for the last few years, and I've really been loving it. It's been a really nice way to combine my skills that I learned when I was upskilling, and now I work and focus on AI and data products. So I'm very happy here.
Absolutely. So you absolutely are right that data resides at the end of the core of any product, like for example, software product per se. So like they say, the data is the new oil, right? So and now every single product, I mean, not every single, but like a majority of the products have like AI and machine learning like stamped on their like tagline and everything. But it's an industry fact that basically 80% of the AI machine learning products fail. Now, what exactly is happening here? Everybody is excited about AI and machine learning. Everybody wants to build a product. People are like energetic about it. People are getting a lot of fundings for it, but somehow the AI and machine learning products fail. You as a data product manager with your so much experience with Tesla and all of these companies, what do you think is basically happening here?
I think the FANG companies have been doing this for a while, right? They might have like ML ops, like entire ML ops teams that support the function of machine learning. For most companies, there's that quote. I don't remember where it comes from, but there's this quote that every company will be an AI company by the end of the decade. And I think this is very true because the scale and the just the growth that can come from leveraging machine learning properly is immense, and it'll give you a competitive advantage. So, companies are kind of left with this conundrum of, do I compete with my competitors, which are going to maybe have a more powerful product or have better performance because of their ability to leverage machine learning? So I think the issue really comes from like managing the expectations, because it's not exactly like we're going to add this feature to our product and that's that. There's refactoring that needs to happen to be able to elevate a product to support machine learning or AI features, even if it's something as easy as maybe like anomaly detection, right, or ranking, or optimizing for certain things. And that's just the product itself. You can leverage machine learning and AI internally as well, so that your internal teams are making decisions, in a smarter way, in a more data-driven way. So it's really both. You're setting your company up for both internal and external leverage using machine learning and AI. I think the problem really resides with companies not understanding the cost of it, because you need a lot of data to run these programs. You need to store that data somewhere. You need to have a workstation in place where you have teams of your engineers, your machine learning engineers or data scientists that are actually able to work in certain environments. So all of that is an investment, and I think that's where the trouble lies, is companies not understanding how much of an investment it is, and then not going that step further of saying, okay, we're making this investment, so let's have a pilot project that we want to set up for success. Because another part of it is maybe outsourcing this knowledge, right? Where they're like, okay, well, we hired a machine learning engineer and we're waiting. We're waiting for this magic to come out of this machine learning engineer. But if your engineering team is not set up to support this person or these people that you hire, or you don't have the right technology stack, you're going to run into issues, and that person's going to have their hands tied. So it's really about setting up the program itself for success, and then setting up the people that you hire for success. Because it's not fair to just like, so many companies will hire a data scientist, and it's like, okay, maybe you hire a data scientist, but that's not really the right approach. Maybe first you hire a data engineer to get the pipelines up and running the way they need to, and then maybe you hire a data analyst. And with those two people, you can actually be very successful before you ever hire a machine learning engineer or a data scientist. So I think it's managing expectations all around. And there are a lot of expectations to manage.
Absolutely. So I think it's not just with an AI and machine learning product. It's with any specific product. We always start with rather than a full blown application, we start up with a prototype and actually see how the market kind of adapts with it, accepts it, rejects it, and take that feedback into account. That feedback mechanism has to be there. So you spoke about, I think that's an interesting point about the cost element of it. So you spoke about the cost of the data. And then I think there's also the cost of, like, you said it right? The teams as well. Like, for example, if you talk about, coming from a software development background myself, when we talk about, for example, hiring a software engineer for web application versus hiring a data scientist at $200 an hour, we're talking about essentially two different things. So people underestimate that what it really takes to build an AI and machine learning workable product, right? You can build any product, but does it really function? Does it really perform what it's supposed to function? Does it have the differentiating factors that it's supposed to have? So that's there. So let's talk a little bit about, like, for example, getting ready. For example, if somebody is looking to build an AI product from scratch, what elements, what aspects should they kind of take into account? Like, obviously, part of the readiness program, part of getting educated about how to build a product just as regular software product versus an AI machine learning product. What are your thoughts about that?
I would start with, like, why AI? Again, I know that there's a lot of buzz.
Sorry, maybe just people get into AI to get funded. Is that
right?
Also?
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, that's
yeah. And I think that's part of the issue, right? VCs are so ready to give funding to AI companies because they know that there's an upside to this. I think it was something crazy, like 45% of all revenues for Amazon come from their recommendation engine. And I'll fact check that. I recently used it actually in something I was writing, that number. But yeah, I'll gladly fact check that for you. But I mean, that's insane. You know, if almost half of revenues for a company as big as Amazon are coming just from their recommendation engine alone, you know, it shows you what is this upside, you know, that's available with machine learning. So yeah, I think VCs are very aware of this. So when they see you know, an AI startup that is seemingly successful, you know, they want to give money to that because they know that it might outpace competing products. I mean, that's the whole point of investing, right? So, but what it's creating is like kind of this push-pull of like, all right, but now companies are creating AI products maybe without fully understanding it. And then the VCs, they don't just want an AI product, they want AI PhDs on staff in order to give you that funding. But of course, this creates another issue, which is for a lot of these products, you know, a basic linear regression model might be enough for, you know, maybe predicting certain values or optimizing for certain things. So you might not need an AI PhD because for what? You know, you might need just someone who is familiar enough with a few different kinds of algorithms that they can give you a product that's pretty powerful. But of course, then companies get caught up in it. So now they're using AI for their marketing to attract investors. And then they're hiring these PhDs and they're having a hard time finding these PhDs because how many AI machine learning PhDs can there be out there, right? So you're kind of stuck in this like middle ground of, you know, trying to appease certain, I guess, appease a certain image, you know, for the benefit of getting funding without really thinking about like, is this actually making my product better? So yeah, I would think very critically about AI, and I would think about, you know, why do we want to use AI? Because that's really the thing. I mean, I saw something recently that said that Boston Dynamics robots don't use machine learning. I forget what they said they used, but it's kind of funny in a way because you know, there's been almost this this image of machine learning being everywhere, AI being everywhere, and I think that's partly because of the marketing buzz.
Right. So talking about being a little bit critical about the AI and also taking into account your statistic about Amazon's recommendation engine, 50% of revenue coming from that. Absolutely, that's huge. Like, when if you talk about, that's probably the benchmark of success for AI and machine learning at the moment, I would say.
Yeah.
But we're talking about Amazon here, right?
Right.
Let's not forget we're talking about Amazon. I mean, people, I mean, if you really look at people, people say, okay, I want to do entrepreneurship, I want to build a startup. Why? Because, I mean, people like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs did this and they inspire me. But really, we're talking about like 0.00001% of the super successful people, right? What about the people who like invested all of their lives, but they did not really succeed in all of that? So people kind of, I think that they really overestimate uh, AI machine learning, coming to the earlier point, and basically kind of take into their extra hopeful about what it can achieve for them in, let's say, 6 months time of developing the product. So, but how come venture capitalist companies fall for this? I think that's the question that I have, is how come venture capitalist companies fall for this? They understand the dynamics, they understand the development of these technologies takes time. I mean, metaverse is going to be probably actually in action, and NFTs are going to be in action, for example, in another 10 years more in mainstream, right? But they're like hopeful right now. So what's happening there with venture capitalists?
Yeah, the climate even with VCs has been changing because I don't know if you saw earlier this year, I think it was in May, Y Combinator had put out a letter and they were saying, you know, partly it's because of the fears of an upcoming recession, but they said, you know, if you're a startup, for the next 24 months, assume you're not going to get funding and do what you can to stay alive for 24 months. So I think VCs, you know, there was like this time where like money was like really flowing freely because interest rates were super low. AI was, buzzing all over the place. And, that's a natural consequence, right? Because we were just coming from this era of big data and everyone's talking about data. And I'd love to go into that in a little bit too. But, it's like now that we have all this data, I mean, that was the whole reason of how we came out of AI winter, because of big data. So now we have all this data. What do you do with it? You crunch it, you try to find information out of it. You try to derive insights out of it. So I feel like that AI buzz is a natural consequence of like these massive, trends that we've all been experiencing in different ways.
Right.
I think moving forward, I would expect that VCs are actually more discerning about it, and hopefully less reliant on like these sort of vanity metrics in a way, of even requiring like a PhD, an AI or a machine learning PhD. Like, I think that's so silly, right? Because the fact is, at this present moment, anybody can learn these skills, and anybody can learn them to a degree where they're comfortable enough deploying these models, and creating their own products. I mean, even in my program, we made our own products. So I think what we're going to be seeing is kind of this democratization of these skills, and that also makes sense, right? Because it used to be that these things like where you went to school or whether you got a PhD were more important, but now that's less important. What's most important is that you know the skills and you can use them, and you can prove that you can use them. So I don't think there's anything that's going to threaten that, and that gives me a lot of hope actually for startups, because with all the accelerators and all the help that's out there right now, I think that if you have a good idea, and you're excited about emerging technologies, whether it's Web3 stuff or whether it's AI/ML, or whether it's IoT, whatever it is, if you're able to build applications using emerging technologies, and you're able to like demonstrate that they are more powerful, then you should be successful, right? As long as that message is out there and you have the right product language fit.
Absolutely. I think being able to demonstrate the actual feasibility as well as kind of the productivity of the platform is definitely important. How hard is it right now to find those resources? Like when we talk, so I think there's two parts to it. If we look at, for example, let's say if there's an IT company building an IT product, they understand the technology. Okay, so there's no real rocket science for them to understand. Okay, what does it really take? Are we talking if you're building an application for web? Should we take like React and Node? Should we do ROR? Should we .NET, Java? Which technology should we go? So an IT company building an AI machine learning product is probably understandable. But when we're talking about, for example, a healthcare company looking to build an AI product, we're talking about like two different subject matter expertise. Like, right, there's healthcare that is entirely different dynamics, entirely different requirements, and then there's tech, the AI machine learning side, which is entirely different. How do you kind of intersect between these two? Is like a huge, I guess, gap which needs to be filled in. I'm not sure how to do that.
Yeah, I think that's where the landscape is really good for anybody that's serving as as a consultant or as a data strategist, because these companies that don't specialize in tech, they need to understand the lay of the land more before they start investing their money into things, because they might hire incorrectly or at the wrong time, or before they even have, let's say, an ability to catalog their data, or an ability to have a centralized warehouse, so all of these things are going to impact how successful they are. And I would say for these industries, it would probably be more beneficial to like hire a consultant for the strategy of it before they start hiring anybody. Because you're right, they don't specialize in this. So jumping headfirst into something that's so complicated and so resource heavy is just a recipe to basically waste your money.
So the problem is actually more complex than I think. That now we're talking about hiring a consultant that has got AI experience as well as healthcare experience. That's going to probably cost $400 an hour. So how does a startup survive with all of these dynamics? It's just, I think that's all of these factors are obviously contributing to the statistic that we quoted earlier, that 80% of the companies with AI machine learning aspect are failing. But yeah, I think these are some really valid and kind of interesting points that people kind of tend to ignore when they enter
Mhm.
into this field, and they should definitely take that into account. Let's
Well,
talk a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
Mohammed, I wanted to make one more point too about you hear so much about just the roles, especially students. They'll say things like, I'm not sure what to study because in the future, like the jobs I'm going to be doing probably don't even exist yet. And I think about that all the time because when I was in school, I think Facebook came out when I was in college. So it was kind of like this funny moment where we were like, wow, okay, this is just a new product, whatever. We're having fun with it, But it sort of speaks to so many people will say things like, oh, AI ML, it's gonna get rid of all these people's jobs, or it's gonna automate people's jobs away, And actually, what we don't consider is, yeah, it probably will certain jobs, or at least certain aspects of certain jobs, more likely certain aspects of certain jobs. But we also don't understand the plus side of it, right? Which is like exactly to your point. When you have like such an impactful technology jump like AI/ML is posing for us, it's going to necessitate way more people that have these skills, or at least knowledge of these skills, even for jobs that don't necessarily relate to, AI/ML. Even if you're not a product manager or engineer, you're probably going to be working with these folks. So really, what this is requiring is like data literacy and AI literacy across the board, and also the emergence of new roles and new offerings that didn't really exist, let's say 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So it's very interesting to at least see the optimistic side of it, which is like actually the job creation part.
Absolutely. I think that absolutely there's no denying that obviously it's not like robots are going to kind of take over the humanity. It's more like the nature of jobs will be different. And they are already different. Like I was looking at this YouTube channel video. So he goes about interviewing, I think it's called American Income or something like that. And they interview different people from different industries and actually ask them about their like general salary bracket. We're talking
Mhm.
about like doctors and dentists used to make like for example 300 400K per annum, and now like all of a sudden data scientists come into play. They're like okay, we're making in millions and things like that. Obviously the nature of jobs have changed, the nature of the demand of these technologies are obviously more, so people have to invest into those, and that's understandable. That's basic adapt or die concept, right? Survival of the
Mhm.
fittest, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm
No,
very curious to see how the landscape will change like in the next 10 years. I mean, it's going to be very, very fun to witness.
absolutely, yeah, and very interesting times coming. Like for example, all of a sudden these things are really kind of. I'm amazed. I've started doing this podcast, and a lot of people are talking about so much interesting ideas of how AR, VR, immersive technologies are being used in different industry. Like I never knew that agriculture could be leveraged. Agriculture could leverage AR and VR as well. So I mean, I'm
Oh yeah.
speaking. Yes, manufacturing is being largely kind of in a positive way being affected by AR and VR technologies. So are other like e-commerce, all of these industries. Automotive is getting affected as well in a positive sense. So very exciting times to come. But thank you so much, Irene, for taking the time for this podcast episode. Very interesting conversation talking about some of the hidden aspects of what people tend to kind of ignore when they get into the AI machine learning world of product development.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.